The rise, the pause, and what came after. Faye and Yoko's changing era. Every story has a moment when momentum slows. Not because something failed, but because something changed. For Faye and Yoko, that moment didn't arrive with an announcement or a clear turning point fans could clip and replay. It arrived quietly, layered over time, until the fandom began to realize they weren't watching the same era anymore. This isn't a story of collapse. It's a story of transition. And transitions are often harder to understand than endings. The rise, when everything felt effortless. There was a time when Faye and Yoko felt everywhere. Their interactions were easy to read. Their energy felt light. Their presence online felt natural, unforced, unguarded, spontaneous. Fans describe this period as soft, warm, emotionally accessible, reassuring. The rise didn't just come from visibility, it came from consistency. There was a rhythm fans learned to expect, a sense that whatever was happening between them flowed, without resistance. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was comfortable. And that comfort is what made fans so attached. When the rise started carrying weight. What many fans are realizing in hindsight is that the rise didn't just bring attention, it brought pressure. As interest grew, so did expectations. Expectations to show up. Expectations to explain. Expectations to remain emotionally open. What once felt like sharing began to feel like being watched. And while fans often associate momentum with success, momentum can also be exhausting, especially when it leaves little room for vulnerability. The rise was real, but so was the cost. The pause. A moment that wasn't planned. The pause didn't feel intentional at first. It arrived through circumstances no one asked for, concern, uncertainty, and a health scare that reframed priorities overnight. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about chemistry or presence anymore. It was about care, about recovery, about stability. Fans noticed the shift immediately. A fewer moments, quieter interactions, a longer silences, more restraint, not absence, intention. And intention can feel unfamiliar when a connection once felt effortless. Why the pause felt like a loss to fans. For many fans, the pause was emotionally confusing. Nothing had ended. No boundaries were announced. No explanations were given. Yet something familiar was gone. What fans were reacting to wasn't distance, it was the loss of predictability. The sense that they knew how to read the dynamic no longer applied. As one fan put it feels like the story changed chapters without telling us. And that discomfort is understandable. People don't just connect to relationships, they connect to patterns. What came after? A different kind of presence. In the phase that followed, fans began noticing a new version of Faye and Yoko. Not colder, not broken, just quieter. Their presence now feels more measured, more private, more deliberate. Instead of emotional cues meant to be interpreted, there's stability. Instead of reassurance, there's restraint. Many fans believe this is where care overtook performance, where showing less became a way of protecting more. Faye's shift from expressive to anchoring. A major part of this changing era is how fans perceive Faye's role. She hasn't disappeared. She hasn't distanced herself. But her energy feels different, less expressive, more grounding. Fans interpret this as Faye choosing to be steady rather than visible, choosing to support without amplifying attention during a sensitive period. That kind of care rarely translates clearly online, but it often matters the most offline. Yoko's recovery changed the rhythm. Recovery doesn't follow timelines. It doesn't come with a public roadmap. Fans sense that Yoko's focus has shifted toward preservation, of health, of energy, of peace. And when one person in a dynamic changes pace, everything around them adjusts. This isn't a retreat. It's recalibration. Why calling this a fall misses the point. Some fans frame this era as a fall. But falls are sudden. This wasn't. This was gradual. Intentional. Protective. What looks like decline in visibility may actually be growth in boundaries. What feels like distance may be closeness without an audience. And that distinction matters. A changing era, not a closing chapter. Every rise needs a pause. Every intense phase needs a quieter one to survive. Faye and Yoko's story didn't stop. It slowed. And slowing down doesn't mean losing momentum. It means choosing direction. Fans may miss the ease of the early days. But what's emerging now feels steadier, more grounded, and more sustainable. Final thoughts. The rise brought joy. The pause brought reflection. And what came after is still being written. Faye and Yoko aren't fading. They're adjusting. And sometimes, the most meaningful chapters aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones that teach us how to stay.